While people are looking for additional volume buttons, let me set you off with that first question, which is, as chair of the SPIN-D Flexible Fund panels, what are your top tips for an excellent application?
Okay, so I'd say there's quite a lot of information about what to consider on the website, so do have a look at that. Make a good case for something that also is useful as a starting point to do larger bids. One of the things about grant funders is the idea of who's looking after looking over their shoulder, and so we're trying to be, with our funding, we're trying to be true to what the ESRC want around equalities and prevention. Now, with any research bid, it's good to consider the impact of the study, the need, and the evidence. Sometimes you may have pilot work that you've done, and also the PPI case fit, which also links to things like priority setting, the JLA, and policy. So think of all those things when you're trying to make a case. So there's a lot of studies out there that are interesting, but interest itself is not enough. Just because, oh, this is an interesting topic, you need to make a proper case, and something you need to also think about what research is out there already. And I think there's lots and lots of studies out there about biomarkers of various kinds, trying to look at risk of dementia at a later date, or risk of dementia in people who don't have dementia, whatever. And so, think about if you really want to do something in that area, can you really compete with some of the very big centres that are already doing very large scale projects in the areas around biomarkers? So that's not really an enthusiastic case to do kind of biomarker related studies. We are interested in things that are novel. Think about what fits the brief very well. I'd say look for the right people to collaborate with. Don't go away and do it on your own and come back and think, I've come up with a perfect bid, this will be wonderful. Because, writing grants is often a developmental process. You have to working on the right idea is absolutely crucial. And you need to get the idea right. And I know the SPIN-D thing is not a long thing to write, but I usually say to people, well, get the pitch on a page. And if it's longer than a page, if it comes back as 4 or 5 pages, then it's kind of like, have you got the right question? Have you got the right idea? Is it clear enough? And if you're having to elaborate on it too much, then you're really going to make the impact. I had a large grant finish recently, and that was about helping crisis teams to manage people with dementia who are having a crisis better in the community. And so partly that was to try to reduce admissions to hospital of people with dementia, to make sure people were managed in the right way, and also to help people stay in the community and reduce the overall costs. So that really, in a couple of sentences, was about the whole thing. It was a quality improvement package. It was about the whole thing of where we could make an impact. So if it needs a lot of explanation to show how it might possibly make an impact, think about whether you got the idea right, and chat to people about it, see what they sound like. I don't know if anybody wants to elaborate on any of those or ask an additional plus question on that.
It's always tricky talking into nowhere, isn't it, Martin? So thank you so much for that. And so I think I really want to emphasise the point that you made there about projects where you can see that there will be a meaningful impact, a sort of real life impact. Yeah. That's certainly something that we're looking for in SPIN-D, not just, oh, it's an interesting idea, but how will it make a difference to people's lives?
Yeah, and quite often it means that also that you're doing something that's publishable in some form as a peer-reviewed paper. It's quite hard to do small studies that are publishable, but it's something that could lead to that.
Yes. Now, Jackie's got a roving mic, so if anybody did want a follow-up question to that, we can. Yes, no, no? Right, well, there isn't. A little bit later, I'm going to ask about the pitch. You'd made the point about the. In fact, maybe I'll do that now, because you mentioned this term,
Yes.
doing a pitch, and you said if you're doing a written application, try to do the pitch on a page. And if it's longer than a page, probably you've not focused in adequately on what it is you're looking to do. If you were doing an even shorter pitch, if you were doing an elevator pitch, how would you what advice would you give people if they were sort of introducing that idea in the elevator pitch format?
Well, then you're looking about maybe 100 or 200 words, really. And I'd say, because sometimes when you get a long application, sometimes what you get is lots of background showing they've read around the topic a lot, but not very much methods. So actually, when you look at all the background, look at all the work that I've done. It's 8 pages. It's like, yes, but you haven't really thought through what the method is, so it's a key. So I guess you're going to have, you're only going to have 1 or 2 lines about the immediate need, because it needs to be very timely. Again, 1 research question, and then something to articulate how you can meet that. Now, with an elevator pitch, you don't need to go into the methods in detail, but it might be something about, for example, the experiences that people with dementia have on hospital wards, and there's some research being done on it, but it might be about, say, knowing that they have not very good outcomes on hospital wards relative to other people without dementia, and wanting to explore their experiences from their perspective and the perspective of the carers and the perspective of the ward staff to better understand why things weren't working out so well. And that could be something like a qualitative study. So something like that, and then probably a line or 2 about the impact at the end. If we find if we find this result that we hopefully expect, then this is how it'll make a difference. So I sometimes think it's good to start at the end point first. What do you actually want to achieve? And then work back from there. What's the best method of achieving this? Because you may, for example, want to better understand how people experience life on dementia wards. And then you need to think, well, are we better off doing individual interviews or focus groups or some kind of big survey consultation? What will give us the actual information we need to answer the question in such a way that it might be useful, for example, ward managers trying to run dementia wards and trying to think of what they can do to make the journey better.
Thank you. Any follow-up comments or questions on this idea of elevator pitches?
I don't know if anybody's got something that they're working on.
Do you know, Martin, I really, really, really hope so, because that's what we're doing for all of tomorrow, like looking at ideas that people have that they're wanting to work on. Whether any of them would be bold enough to say it in the room this evening, I'm not sure, but you never know. We'll see. I'll get through to the end of these questions I've got written down. See whether anybody's got follow-ups there. So, as you know, that for the SPIN-D Flexible Fund, encouraging people to at least have a collaboration between researchers and lived experience representatives. But I know you have done collaborations across some really big networks. Some of those projects that you've done within INTERDEM have been multi-country projects. Could you tell us some of the advantages, as you see it, about collaborative research networks?
Well, I guess one of the things is, let's say you're a PhD student working in a university somewhere in the UK, is how do you get beyond that? How do you get outside your normal comfortable frame of comfortable or uncomfortable frame of reference? And I think this is where I'm going to pitch about the INTERDEM Academy. Could we have a show of hands for how many people in the room are not members of the INTERDEM Academy? How
Who's
many not members?
not members of the INTERDEM? I would say, approaching a half, somewhere between a third and a half, I think. So.
Is that like about 10 or 15 people?
Yes, that's probably about 10 or
Okay.
15 people.
Now, how did I do that? Amazing. Yeah. So I can't see them all. So I guess one of the things is it's good to join the INTERDEM Academy, and that allows you access to various workshops and events. You can have mentoring. You may get mentoring from somebody from a completely different country, and they have a way of matching up mentors with mentees, which works quite well. But you can also meet people. Let's say you're doing work in dementia care in residential homes, and you and your supervisor are the only people that you know of who are doing it. You can meet people doing similar work in other countries, so you can have a more specialist peer group. So it's not just people working in dementia or dementia care. It could be people working in dementia care in hospitals, or people working in early diagnosis or in primary care. And that's one of the great things about it. And there's about 300 members of the INTERDEM Academy now. It's about it's PhD students and early career researchers. And if Esther's in the room,
Esther's not in the room.
Esther's not in the room.
I'll tell you who's here. There's from the leadership within INTERDEM or the INTERDEM Academy. We've got Federica and Felix.
Brilliant. Okay. Well, Federica and Felix would be excellent people to talk to. So chat to them. The other thing is, and also we have European task forces, and Felix is involved with coordinating those with me. And there's European task forces on things like inequalities, prevention, young onset dementia, methodology, technology. I've not listed them all, but you can then find people to collaborate with from the task forces, and that's even more helpful because you can then join a task force. If you're interested in prevention, you can join the prevention task force. It's no cost to join the academy or the task forces, but then you can meet up with people, and there's usually the Alzheimer Europe meeting every year, and it's very welcoming. So talk to Felix and Federica. They won't be taking any money from you because it's free to join, and we try and run it by getting small foundational grants to do things.
Yeah. So now we know, Federica and Felix, if we hear that you're trying to get a bit of pay, it's not okay. So thank you, Martin. We've got I've got one more question, and then I'll see
Can I just talk about collaboration a bit more?
Yeah, do. Well, my next question was about collaboration as well. So yeah, continue talking collaboration.
Okay. So one of the things about collaboration is when I'm looking for people on, say, for a research grant bid, I in the nicest possible way, I hunt them down, in that I want to find people who are really good in that area, and also people who I'm going to work with well, and people who have expertise. They can have growing expertise in the area. So they might be at different stages of their career, but depending on the scale of the bid you're going for larger bids, you're probably going to generally need people who are at a more advanced stage of their career. Not all of them necessarily, but you want to find people, and then it's good to link up with them, and then it's good to have a chat. So rather than offer them something, meet up with them, have a chat, maybe online, and get an idea about, are they the right person to go with you? But also this personal approach is very helpful. And again, of course, also the personal approach is very helpful at conferences, because there's people on the INTERDEM stall, or there's posters, or there's workshops and meetings, and just come up and just see if you can chat to them. It might be somebody who's top of the field in their area, but it's very specific to the kind of work you want to do. So I wouldn't just rely on sending people an email and hoping they reply. Try and link up with them and be friendly, and get an idea about whether you're on the same page or not. So so that's part of the answer probably, but there's other things.
Other things?
Well, I thought you might ask me the next thing.
Oh, right. Yeah. Well, I was to the other things, Martin.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, it's I guess one of the things is when you're thinking about, you think about what the purpose of the collaboration is, and it might be to collaborate on a paper, and certainly with INTERDEM, of course, there's quite a lot of collaborations around things like policy-related papers or symposium papers or consensus statement. But it might be also for a grant. And if, for example, you're looking for a European grant, then getting the right people from the right European centres, again, it's quite tricky to do. Sometimes you may have somebody who you know who can introduce you. And a lot of work I do, I'm director of the Institute of Mental Health, is actually a lot of work I do is linking people up. Saying, oh, by the way, I wonder if you wanted to speak to so-and-so because they're also interested in, mood disorders in dementia or this or whatever. So sometimes I'm linking up junior researchers with senior researchers, but it's good if you could have people, maybe your supervisor or other people you're working with, who can then, maybe they know somebody who can make the link for you. So especially if you're collaborating internationally, again, the INTERDEM Academy is quite useful because it gives you access to a huge pool of senior researchers as well as Academy members. But being able to make those links, because you also need to broaden the way you think. And again, just working around on your own PhD, sometimes it can be not only quite lonely, but also quite isolating. Because this particular project you're doing yourself and being able to have access to other people who are working in the area, who are interested in the same kind of things, and sometimes who will give you comments on what you're doing, which is really useful. So, and I don't mind if people want to contact me directly and say, oh, by the way, I'm looking to meet somebody who's working in such and such an area in Europe. Can I help? And I don't mind helping if it's useful. I would say, do say who you are and do send me a short CV. Rather than just, I do get some things. Oh, hi Martin. If you want it, it's like, okay,
So you like to know who people are, and
I like to know who people are, and I think if I don't know you, you usually it's a more formal than if you, hi buddy or hi mate. Do you want to? No, I'd like to have a proper introduction so I know who I'm dealing with, and then we go from there. But yeah, but I want to be helpful.
Thank you. And you've been talking about the benefits of collaboration, but sometimes that can be tricky if people come from different perspectives or different disciplines. What suggestions would you have for how to form connections or form teams when people maybe even use a different a different set of terms to the ones that you might from whatever your particular disciplinary background might be?
Well, it's good to, I think one of the things about doing, quite often doing a PhD is you feel quite special and quite proud that you're this smart person who's able to do a PhD and you've been picked out for being PhD material. And that's quite, people can be quite pleased with that and quite proud of that, which is fine. But I think it's important to be humble and learn to, respect other people's perspectives and understand the way they look at things and the way they do things. When somebody was advising somebody else on the qualities of working with me, I was quite pleased with this comment. They said I was a good listener, So I do, certainly when I'm working with people, I do quite a lot of listening and trying to understand their perspective and where they're coming from. And of course, sometimes if I give them some time to explain it and I'm lost, that's very helpful to know. You know what I mean? Because then I might have to clarify quite a few things. Because if this is the way they're thinking about their study, or what they want to do, you know, they might need to boil it down to something which is easier to understand. And that, again, that's the value of listening. I'm kind of, I guess I'm kind of, you know, I try and have a multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary perspective through and through, as Georgina will say. Because, you know, I've worked with Georgina a long time, and I've worked obviously with people from a wide variety of backgrounds, nursing, OT, clinical psychology, and a range of other disciplines as well. So for me, that's part of how I think, you know, and being in the dementia care side, I think that's quite different from being in the kind of medical model side where you're looking at the next gene or you're looking at the next blood test for this or that. So I think being humble, being respectful is very important. And, you know, to realize that although you may be very brainy, there's a lot to learn. And you know, there's just a lot to learn generally. Thanks, Chris. You know, and it's fun. It's fun, the learning process.
Yes. So now I've got to the end of my questions. Oh, now Chris has appeared on the screen. I didn't know we were seeing you this evening, Chris, but hello, welcome.
Well, you'll see me tomorrow. I'm just saying hello because I'll be in person tomorrow. I'm driving down.
Excellent. Do you want to introduce yourself tonight, or are you going to introduce yourself tomorrow?
Well, might not get time tomorrow, so I co-lead SPIN-D with Georgina, and I'm a colleague of Martin's, and I'm very similar to Martin, although I do a bit of AI and care and biomolecules. I'm not the right person. I stretch across the pathway, Martin, don't I?
But there's nothing wrong with that. That's absolutely fine.
No, it's funny, you see, Chris, I don't think of you as Martin as similar at all. Do you mean you're both old age psychiatrists? Is that the similar?
We do, but also I do a lot of a fair bit of care, and I've been on a few of Martin's projects. He's been very generous. So there's an example of collaboration, and likewise.
It's gone both ways, and I do think of myself as similar to Chris actually in terms of my approach to things. And I think we've learned from each other in the way we do things, and so no, I think that actually, yeah, no, I won't say we're exactly cut from the same cloth, but I think in terms of the way we approach research questions, in terms of the way we put teams together and how we lead and manage things, yeah, I think there's quite a lot of similarities. And partly, you know, enjoy working with Chris, and yeah.
Excellent. So, Chris, given that you're here, did you have any question that you think you'd like to ask Martin, or
Don't tempt me, Georgina. Don't tempt me.
Okay, so before we find that we've got to the end of our time here, is there any idea that anybody would like to pitch to Martin now to get his thoughts, or any questions that you might have to do with the funding applications or any of the collaborative strategies that he's mentioned? I quite like his. Do you give a name to your hunting people down technique, Martin? It sounds a bit Liam Neeson, isn't it? Yeah, I will find you.
Well, no, it's not quite like that. You just have to. I was going to say root them out. You just have to find them, but you have to decide what you need in those people. You know what you need in the qualities of people, and then you ask around. You look at people, and then you try and find something that works. And also sometimes, for example, if I found somebody online or through links, then I want to see who they know and who they work with, who I know. And can you, what's this person? Do you think this person would be interested in working in dementia, for example? Because sometimes they've not worked in dementia at all, and sometimes you speak to a colleague, go, oh, you know so and so, might they be interested in this kind of thing? So there's some of the, the kind of background stuff that people don't see, but a lot of it's just the phone calls, the Teams calls, the making the links.
So building links both within the groupings of people that already work in dementia, but also bringing people with additional skills into dementia projects. Yeah. I think Jackie, the early career researcher Jacqueline Parks, has a question for you.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I just thought I'd throw it out for my senior prof colleagues. But one of the things that I often think about, and I wondered what Martin and Chris thought about this when I'm prepping books for these guys to think about as well, it is making sure they've sort of read the criteria and got those notes in advance of trying to complete the application, looking at, you know, what is actually needed with sometimes, but it sounds really obvious, but often you can get to the end of if you don't start by reading the criteria and think, oh, I needed to sort that out or I needed to form that relationship. I just wondered what Martin and Chris's take on it was and how
Can
it.
you clarify the question, Georgina?
Yeah, I think Jackie was just wondering whether you could expand on something that you said right at the beginning, which is the importance of reading the criteria for the bid and making sure you've read the criteria really well before you even start on the application. And she thought perhaps you and Chris both have a little more to say on that.
I guess sometimes what it is, I think, is people think, oh, this is an interesting idea. I'll put this interesting idea in for this call. But it's got to be a really good match. You know, it's got to be really, sometimes people have pet projects that they want to get some funding for, and oh, I'll chuck it into this call or that call or whatever. But it's much more of a making a match with that. Because things that you tend to in this country, the NIHR, are quite different from what you tend to the ESRC or the MRC. And also, if it's a very specialist call, you have to make sure you really tick all the boxes. So I'd say, you know, if you have particular projects that you've always wanted to do, sometimes people are very attached to ideas they've held on to for years. Oh, I'll put this one this way again. I'll have another go with this. I'll have another go with that. But it's more like, you know, you have to design the project very, very carefully with the funders in mind.
So know your funder, know your criteria.
Know your funder, and don't just put something in because it's your kind of pet project and you put it in 7 or 8 times already and you recycle it and stick it in again without necessarily thinking about it. It's a bit like when, you know, somebody sends a paper to a journal, they get it rejected, they don't do anything to it, and they just stick it into another journal. You've got to learn from your setbacks and design it for the funder.
So we've got a question from the floor here. Can you hear Katrina, Martin?
No.
Oh, Katrina, do you want to just come up here? Because we're not quite sure whether the microphones are... Come here, come here.
Come on, Katrina.
No, Jackie, I don't think the microphones are speaking to the... Can you hear her now?
Who?
You're going to have to come here.
It can't be that far, is it? A long way?
No, it's about 5 yards. It's okay.
5 yards, okay.
But you see, you don't know what a challenge 5 yards might be for everybody there, Martin.
Well, hi there.
Hello, I'm Katrina. I'm a postdoc from King's College London.
Hello.
So the rest of the room can hear you.
You talk about collaborations and hunting people down and things. It sounds very much from a PI point of view, from someone who's secure that they will get funding at some point to continue. As a postdoc, how do you adapt to the fact that you're asking people to contribute to a grant proposal that you don't know whether you're going to have, and in fact, if you don't get it, you're going to have to leave. It's a different prospect when you're talking to people. So how would you adapt your technique to the very precarious position that we find ourselves in?
It's tough being postdocs, having to get more funding for this and funding for that. There's no way around it. It is tough, and it's kind of, especially if you've got 2 years of funding here, and then you have to get another 3 years or another year or an extension or something. But there's a lot of people, me included, who want to help support and develop the next generation. You know, because we need future leaders. We need people who are going to become leaders. And it takes a bit, I guess, of what's called in the UK bottle, you know, quite a bit of determination and the ability to bounce back. I don't look on grants as kind of like a lottery. You put 10 in and they hope you get 1. They have to be really, really well shaped and finely tuned. And so that's why, in terms of adapting it, that's why I think if you approach somebody, you do it very carefully. You know, you give them a brief intro of what you want to work in. I'd send them like a 1-page CV, show them your passion, show them your expertise in the area, and show them why, you know, why they'd want to work with you. So I think reaching out is okay. And of course, if you reach out and somebody just knocks you back, if you've done it in the right way and they just give you a knockback, then maybe that's not a person you want to work with anyway. You know, because actually, you know, you want to work with somebody who's accessible and who's open, who's interested in the area. Sometimes what people will do, they'll say, well, actually, I'm not working so much in this area these days, but you might try so-and-so. And then what you can do is you can write to that other person, you know, look into them, Google them first, etc. You can write to them and you can say, so-and-so suggested I contact you. So I've been in touch with them. They're not working, but they suggested you might be a good person to talk to. So don't forget, it's a relational thing. It's about, you know, well, be a good fit or be, you know, show them the reasons to work with. One of the questions I quite like to ask at interviews is, what makes you a good fit for this project or this PhD or something like that? Now that's useful because the person can talk about not only their own qualities, but also understanding the project and also the match between what they've got, understanding the project, and what you need for the project. So, you know, thinking about what is a good fit, I think is crucial. And I've been quite lucky, I think, on my grant journey, not just on getting some big grants, but also in terms of I've not been at a stage myself where I'm relying on the next Skirts grant to cover my salary. You know, so, and I know a lot of people who work with me who have been relying on that. And going from, you know, a year on this, 2 years on that, etc. Is that helpful?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
And I don't, Katrina, if you have somebody that you want to work with, or if you want a link or you want a suggestion, I don't mind if you just drop me an email. But again, send me a summary, send me a 1-page CV and say, I'd be interested, I want to find somebody who's working in such and such. Okay, I'll see if I can help.
Okay, thanks, Martin. So I think we probably need to be heading on down to our dinner.
I'm out.
I think I'd just like to finish off, Martin, with thank you. Also to say that although you might not have been in the position where your salary was dependent on your next bid, I'm aware that there have been times over all these years that I've known you, there have been times when you've had really quite big knockbacks for different things. But one of the things that I've observed in Martin is that even at times when you've had really quite a big setback, you've paused and you've licked your wounds, and then you've decided, what is my plan for having a different outcome next time?
Yeah. Well, and that's true. I mean, it's not been a straightforward path. And of course, the other thing is, even if your salary is, you know, looked after, you still need to get the grants and the papers to be performing as an academic. So in terms of progressing, you need to be doing the other things too. But thank you, yeah.
Thank you. I don't know whether you'll hear applause from the room, but we'll give it a go anyway.
I can hear you a bit.
You can hear me a
you.
bit, can you?
Yeah,
Okay.
thanks, Georgina.
Thank
Nice
you.
to see you.
Have a good evening. Have a good evening.